Hi guys, welcome back to TOEFL with Yuva. A lot of you guys have asked me, Yuva, can you make a video about TOEFL reading? So here it is. Today we're doing an ETS TOEFL reading practice test with answers. I tell you tips and tricks how to solve the questions in TOEFL reading correctly. By the way, if you want to get more tips about the TOEFL and download templates, subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss the next video. Let's get started. What you can see here is the ETS reading practice set number 1, and this is the passage we are going to solve now. Now, in one of my videos, I told you guys that I would always recommend skimming the passage first so that you know where the information is located in the text. That's true. I highly recommend that. However, we are not going to do this now. We jump straight to the first question. So let's have a look at the first question. The first question says, in paragraph 1, each of the following is mentioned as a feature of the city of Teotihuacan between AD 150 and 700 except. Now, first you have to think about what kind of question this is. This is a not except question, okay? You can see this because it says except here. Okay, this is a not except question. And these questions ask you to find the answer that is not mentioned in the text. So let's have a look at the answers. A says regularly arranged streets. B talks about administrative centers. C talks about manufacturing workshops. And D about apartment complexes. Let's have a look at paragraph 1 because this is where we can find the information. And let's have a look what could be features of the city and what are not features of the city. So let's start with the first sentence. It says here, the city of Teotihuacan, which lay about 50 kilometers northeast of modern-day Mexico City, and it goes on. This is not interesting for us here. Here, this is where it gets interesting. The text talks about 2,000 apartment complexes, a great market, a large number of industrial workshops, an administrative center, and it goes on, and a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. So this sentence seems quite interesting for us because it talks about features of the city. It talks about apartment complexes, etc. that you can find in this city, okay? So let's go back to our answers and let's have a look at them again. We now have to look whether we can find these answers in the text because you solve this question by elimination. You find the features that are mentioned in the text and then you know exactly which feature is not mentioned in the text. So let's have a look at A, regularly arranged streets. Can we find that in the text? Let's have a look. Yeah, here it says a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. So a regular grid pattern of streets means regularly arranged streets. It's just expressed differently in the text. So A is definitely out because this is a feature of the city. I remember something about workshops and I remember something about apartment complexes. Let's have a look at the first paragraph again. Here it talks about a large number of industrial workshops. Now, in the answer, it talks about manufacturing workshops, but manufacturing is a synonym for industrial. So this is also a feature of the city. And as you can see here, it talks about 2,000 apartment complexes, okay? So apartment complexes are also a feature of the city. So we know that D must be out and C is out as well. So we're left with B. B is the correct answer. Now let's have a look at the first paragraph again, because this answer wants to trick you, and I will show you now why. As you can see here, it talks about administrative centers, and here they're trying to confuse you because the first paragraph also mentions an administrative center. So the word administrative center appears there, but the paragraph talks about an administrative centers, so it's only one. And the answer here, B, you are given, talks about several administrative centers spread across the city. Here they want to trick you. They want to see whether you read administrative centers and whether you think, oh, this appeared in a text, so it must be a feature of the city, because this would be wrong. They want to see whether you understand the meaning, whether you see, okay, the answer mentions several administrative centers, but in the text it talks about an administrative centers and not several, okay? So make sure that you read the answers precisely that are given, because this is very important. Don't fall into such a trap. Let's go on with question number 2. Question number 2 says, the word ingenuity in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to. And then it gives several answers. So guys, this is a vocabulary question. Okay, so let's write this down here. Vocabulary question. It asks you about a word, about the meaning of a word, and the word is ingenuity. And you have to figure out what this word means. Now, there are two possibilities. This kind of question is either very easy for you or difficult. It's very easy if you know the word. If you know the word, you just choose it. You do not have to go back to the text and make a second check because you know the word. This saves you a lot of time. That's amazing. But what happens if you have absolutely no idea what ingenuity means? Let's assume the worst case. You don't know the word. What do? The first thing you do is you go to the part in the text where you can find the word. So we can find this word in paragraph 2. Let's have a look at paragraph 2. Where can we find ingenuity? Here it is. I'd recommend reading at least the sentence where the word appears. However, sometimes you may need to read the 2 sentences before or after so that you understand the context. Let's have a look. The sentence starts here. What does it say? The exact role of other factors is much more difficult to pinpoint. Okay, for instance, Teotihuacan's religious significance as a shrine, the historical situation in and around the Valley of Mexico toward the end of the first millennium BC, the ingenuity and foresightedness of Teotihuacan's elite. So this is the part of this passage we are looking for. They talk about the ingenuity and foresightedness of Teotihuacan's elite, and now you have to figure out what this means. What could ingenuity mean in this context? Perhaps let's quickly have a look at the first sentence. The first sentence talks about a tremendous development. So they ask, how did this tremendous development take place in Teotihuacan Valley? How did this happen? And they say, okay, this may have been due to the ingenuity and foresightedness of Teotihuacan's elite. So we have to ask ourselves, what does ingenuity mean in this context? Let's go back and have a look at the answers. Let's have a look at B. Can sincerity be a factor for the development of a city? I don't think so. Can faith of the elite be a factor for the development of a city? Sounds also a bit weird. Ambition could be possible if somebody's very ambitious and does a lot. Perhaps he contributes to development, so could be the case. But what fits best in this context is cleverness, okay? And cleverness, what is the correct answer, and that's what they are talking about here. They talk about the cleverness and the foresightedness of the elite that contributed to the development happening in this valley. Let's go on with question number 3. Question number 3 says, which of the following is not mentioned in paragraph 2 as a main factor in the development of Teotihuacan? This again, guys, is a not except question, okay? You can see this because it says not. And if you see that, you immediately know that you have to solve this question by elimination. So we are looking for a factor that is not mentioned in the text. Let's quickly have a look at the factors. A talks about the presence of obsidian in the valley. B talks about the potential for extensive irrigation. C, a long period of volcanic inactivity. And D talks about the location on a natural trade route. Let's jump to paragraph 2 and let's have a look which one of those is mentioned as a main factor in the development of the city, and then we know which one is not mentioned as a factor. So paragraph 2, here we are. This is paragraph 2. Let's start right at the beginning. How did this tremendous development take place and why did it happen in the Teotihuacan Valley? Exactly, this is what we're interested in. Here it says, among the main factors, this is what we are looking for, okay? Among the main factors are Teotihuacan's geographic location on a natural trade route. I remember that this was in the answers, natural trade route, the obsidian resources in the valley itself, and the valley's potential for extensive irrigation. Let's go back to the answers and have a look which answers we can eliminate. In the passage, guys, they talk about the presence of obsidian in the Teotihuacan Valley, so A is out. They talk about extensive irrigation. We read about that. B is out. They talk about the city's location on a natural trade route, so D is out as well. So it must be C, okay? C is the correct answer. Let's have a look at paragraph 2 again. There is nothing in the text that talks about volcanic inactivity, okay? Nothing talks about volcanic inactivity here. They talk about volcanic eruptions in the end, but this is absolutely not important for us, and this has nothing to do with volcanic inactivity. Let's go back to question number 4. Question number 4 says, what can be inferred from paragraph 3 about Quiquilco prior to 200 BC? This is an inference question, and this is pretty obvious here because it uses the verb infer, okay? This is an inference question. What is an inference question? An inference question means that you have to figure out information that is not directly stated in the text. This means there is something stated in the text explicitly, and from that you need to derive something that is not stated directly in the text, but it's implied, okay? You have to infer something from the text. We can find our information in paragraph 3. This is good to know. Let's have a look at the answers. A states it was a fairly small city until that date, okay? B, it was located outside the Valley of Mexico. C, it emerged rapidly as an economical and political center. And C, its economy relied heavily on agriculture. Let's have a look at paragraph 3. What can we infer about this city? Paragraph 3, here we go. Here we are, paragraph 3. Here they talk about Quiquilco, so this is important. So let's start here. Around this time, the largest of these centers, Quiquilco, was seriously affected by a volcanic eruption, with much of its agricultural land covered by lava. With Quiquilco, here it is again, eliminated as a potential rival, any one of a number of relatively modest towns might have emerged as a leading economic and political power in central Mexico. So in the second sentence here, they already don't really talk about Quiquilco anymore. They only say, okay, Quiquilco was eliminated as a potential rival, but then they're talking about other towns, and we are not interested in these towns. We are interested in Quiquilco, so we stick to this sentence here, okay? Until here. Let's have a look at the sentence again. Quiquilco was seriously affected by a volcanic eruption. So seriously affected by a volcanic eruption with much of its agricultural land covered by lava. This is the only information we have about Quiquilco. Let's go back to the answers. Now guys, think about that. What can be inferred from paragraph 3 about Quiquilco? The text says that Quiquilco was seriously affected by a volcanic eruption and much of its agricultural land was covered by lava. So we can infer that Quique's economy relied heavily on agriculture. So D is the correct answer. Why is that? If the text tells you that a city was seriously affected by a volcanic eruption and much of its agricultural land was covered by lava, the fact that much of its agricultural land was covered by lava is the reason why the city was seriously affected. And if this is the reason, this means that agriculture must have been important for this city. And from that, we can infer, okay, its economy relied heavily on agriculture. Let's go on with question number 5. Which of the following allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge over its neighbors? This, guys, is a detail question. I will write that down here. Detail question. Why is this a detail question? So it asks you which of the following answers allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge. So this means you must go into the text and you must figure out which of these given choices allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge over its neighbors. Let's first have a look at the answers. A talks about a well-exploited and readily available commodity. B, the presence of a highly stable elite class. Okay. C, knowledge derived about tool making. And D talks about scarce natural resources. Now, as you can see, there is no paragraph stated here where we can find the information in the text. So let's have a look where we can find it. It's marked here, so it's paragraph 4. Paragraph 4, a competitive edge over its neighbors. Here we are. This sentence is important, so we are starting here. Let's start reading. It seems likely that Teotihuacan's natural resources, okay, they're talking about natural resources here, along with the city elite's ability to recognize their potential, gave the city a competitive edge over its neighbors. Then it goes on, the valley, like many other places in the Mexican and Guatemalan highlands, was rich in obsidian. So this is the natural resource they are talking about. They're talking about obsidian, and here at the end of the text you can see what obsidian is. It's a type of rock, so we don't need more information. It's a rock. That's fine. So it goes on, the hard volcanic stone was a resource that had been in great demand for many years, at least since the rise of the Olmecs, and it apparently had a secure market. So it had been in great demand, it had a secure market. This may have been a factor for Teotihuacan's economic success. We need to figure out a factor that gave Teotihuacan a competitive edge over its neighbors. We read this passage, we know it talks about natural resources. I think we don't need to know more, so let's go back to the question. Let's have a look at the answers. A, it talks about a well-exploited and readily available commodity. We just read about a natural resource called obsidian. A seems to be the correct answer. Let's go on with the others and have a look whether we can eliminate them. B talks about the presence of a highly stable elite class. If you remember this, they talk about the city's elite here, but they don't talk about the fact that the presence of the elite gave Teotihuacan a competitive edge over its neighbors. No, it was the city elite's ability to recognize a potential and not the presence of the elite. So B is out, okay? Knowledge derived about tool making. They talked about tool making here, but this was in a different context. So they talked about obsidian tools found at Olmec sites, but they didn't talk about tool making. Okay, C is also out. D, scarce natural resources. They talk about natural resources in the text. So attention again, guys. This is directly mentioned in the text. Here they want to trick you, but they do not talk about scarce natural resources. If you remember that in the text, it says that the valley was rich in obsidian. Okay, it was rich in these resources. So from that we know that D is also out, so it must be A. Of course, you can choose A immediately if you see it and if you know it. In TOEFL reading, you also don't have much time. So this is definitely the way to go if you are sure that this is the correct answer. But if you are unsure, you can always work by elimination. You can always say, okay, it may be A, but I have the time, let's quickly go back to the text and check whether I'm correct, and then you just eliminate the other answers, and then you know, okay, this must be the correct answer. So this is always a method that you can use when you are unsure. Let's go to question number 6. Question number 6 says, according to paragraph 4, what has recent research on obsidian tools found at Olmec sites shown? So here they talk about paragraph 4. This is where we can find the information. And this again, guys, is a detail question. So I'm just writing this down for you. Detail question. Let's have a look at the answers. A says obsidian's value was understood only when Teotihuacan became an important city. The residents of Teotihuacan were sophisticated tool makers. So here, just underlining this, they talk about tool making. Here they talk about the obsidian's value. C, the residents of Teotihuacan traded obsidian with the Olmecs. Okay, this is something about trade. And D, some of the obsidian used by the Olmecs came from the area around Teotihuacan. This is about the area. So let's have a look at paragraph 4. What does it say? This is a rather easy question, right? Because it's really stated directly in the text. Let's have a look at this sentence here. Let's start here. Moreover, recent research on obsidian tools found at Olmec sites has shown that some of the obsidian obtained by the Olmecs originated near Teotihuacan. This is paraphrased directly in the text. Let's go back to the answers. D must be our correct answer. Some of the obsidian used by the Olmecs came from the area around Teotihuacan. D is correct. You can find this directly in the text. Let's go to question number 7. What does it say? Select the 2 answer choices. So we have to select 2 answer choices, okay, that are mentioned in paragraph 5 as being features of Teotihuacan that may have attracted immigrants to the city. We are looking for features of the city that may have attracted immigrants. This is what we need to look for. Let's have a look at the answers. A talks about the prosperity of the elite. B, plenty of available housing. Okay. C talks about employment opportunities. And D talks about religious shrines. Let's go to paragraph 5. This is where we can find the information in the text. Let's start right at the beginning. Long-distance trade in obsidian probably gave the elite residents of Teotihuacan access to a wide variety of exotic goods, as well as a relatively prosperous life. We remember that from the answers, right? They talked about the prosperity of the elite, so this could be a correct answer. Such success may have attracted immigrants to Teotihuacan. This is our first answer, our first correct answer, the prosperity of the elite. So we already have one. That's amazing. Let's go back to the text and let's go on. In addition, so this means there may have been another factor. That sounds good because we need 2 answers. Teotihuacan's elite may have consciously attempted to attract new inhabitants. It is also probable that as early as 200 BC, Teotihuacan may have achieved some religious significance, and its shrine or shrines, so here they talk about shrines, may have served as an additional population magnet. The shrine or shrines are mentioned here, which may have attracted immigrants as well, so we can choose that one too. Here we are. The presence of 1 or more religious shrines. Remember in the passage they talked about a shrine or shrines, so 1 or more religious shrines is mentioned in the text, so that's correct. In the text they don't talk about housing, they also don't talk about agricultural employment, they only talk about A and D, so that's correct. I just realized I forgot to tell you guys that this is also a detailed question, okay? This is a detailed question because we need to go to the text and we need to figure out 2 details. And those details are features that may have attracted immigrants to the city, prosperity and the shrines. Okay, that's why it's a detailed question. Let's jump to question number 8. What does it say? In paragraph 6, the author discusses the thriving obsidian operation in order to. This, guys, is a function question because it asks you, why does the author discuss something? Why does the author use this expression here? He does that in order to do something. So he wants to tell you something, he wants to show you something, and we call this a function question, okay? It's a function question. Let's have a look at the answers. Does the author discuss the thriving obsidian operation to explain something, to give an example of something, illustrate something, or explain? Again, explain something different. Let's have a closer look at the answers. A talks about why manufacturing was the main industry of Teotihuacan. B, give an example of an industry that took very little time to develop in this city. C, illustrate how several factors influenced each other to make Teotihuacan a powerful and wealthy city. And D, explain how a successful industry can be a source of wealth and a source of conflict at the same time. Okay, we definitely need to go to paragraph 6 to figure this out. Okay, this is where we can find the information. Let's go to paragraph 6 and let's have a look why he mentions that. So, here it is, the thriving obsidian operation. Good. Let's start at the beginning. The picture of Teotihuacan that emerges is a classic picture of positive feedback among obsidian mining, working, trade, and so on. And then it gets interesting. The thriving obsidian operation. This is the expression that is mentioned in the question, and we need to figure out why he mentions that. For example, would necessitate more miners, okay, additional manufacturers, additional traders to carry the goods to new markets. All this led to increased wealth, which in turn would attract more immigrants to Teotihuacan. The growing power of the elite who controlled the economy would give them the means to physically coerce people to move to Teotihuacan and serve as additions to the labor force. Does the author use this expression to explain why manufacturing was the main industry of Teotihuacan? No, I think it does not. It also doesn't talk about why this industry took little time to develop, but what it does is it shows how several factors influenced each other to make Teotihuacan a powerful and wealthy city. And that's why, guys, that's why C is correct. Let's have a look at the passage again. You can see this here. I will use another color now. I will use red. The text talks about that more miners are needed, additional manufacturers, additional traders. This led to, so this means this is a factor that influences something. This led to increased wealth, which in turn would attract more immigrants. Growing power, again, they controlled the economy, and then they could force people to move to Teotihuacan and serve as additions to the labor force. More irrigation works, and so on. So we have a number of factors here that influence other things, and then these things influence, again, something. So that's why, guys, that's why C is correct. It talks about several factors that influenced each other to make Teotihuacan a powerful and wealthy city. Okay, let's go on with question number 9. Question number 9 says, in paragraph 1, so this is the paragraph we need to consider of the passage, there is a missing sentence. Okay, the paragraph is repeated below and shows 4 letters that indicate where the following sentence could be added. This is the paragraph, and there are 4 letters, A, B, C, D, and we need to figure out where we need to insert a sentence. And this is the sentence we need to insert. Let's have a look at the sentence. What does it say? In fact, artifacts and pottery from Teotihuacan have been discovered in sites as far away as the Mayan lowlands, the Guatemalan highlands, northern Mexico, and the Gulf Coast of Mexico. ETS asks you now, where would the sentence best fit? This means that you need to figure out which of these answers here is the best option. Now guys, first let's have a look again at the sentence that we need to insert, because the sentence already tells you a lot of important things. The sentence starts with in fact. In fact is an expression like actually. This sentence strengthens something that has been stated before, and then it talks about artifacts and pottery that have been discovered in sites as far away as, and then it goes on like that. Let's have a look at the paragraph. We already read this passage before, so let's just skim it. The city of Teotihuacan, which lay about 50 kilometers northeast of modern-day Mexico City, and then it goes on like that. There are a lot of numbers here. Let's read from here. It probably had a population of more than 125,000 people and covered at least 20 square kilometers. Does the sentence we need to insert fit here? The sentence says something about the population, it tells you something about the area that was covered by the city, but the sentence we need to insert doesn't seem to fit here, so let's go on. Here again we have our apartment complexes, a great market, okay. Does the sentence fit in B? No, it doesn't seem to fit. Let's go on. Clearly much planning and central control were involved in the expansion and ordering of this great metropolis. C also doesn't seem to fit, so perhaps we're left with D. Let's have a look. Moreover, the city had economic and perhaps religious contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica, modern Central America, and Mexico. This seems interesting. They talk about religious contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica, so they talk about areas in Mesoamerica. And if you remember that, if you have a look at the sentence, they talk about areas here. They talk about the Mayan lowlands, the Guatemalan highlands, and northern Mexico, and the Gulf Coast of Mexico. This seems quite interesting. Let's read the sentence again and let's insert our sentence that we are given. Moreover, the city had economic and perhaps religious contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica, modern Central America, and Mexico. So we go on and say, in fact, artifacts and pottery from Teotihuacan have been discovered in sites as far away as the Mayan lowlands, the Guatemalan highlands, and so on. So as you can see here, guys, the sentence fits. The correct answer is D, because I told you before that in fact is strengthening something, and it strengthens the idea that the city had contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica, because those parts are mentioned here. They talk about, guys, they talk about artifacts and pottery that were discovered in these areas. And if artifacts and pottery are discovered in these areas, this strengthens the idea that the city had economic and perhaps religious contacts with most parts of Mesoamerica, and that's why D is the correct answer. Just for your information, guys, this is an organization question. Organization question, and we call it like that because you have to organize something here. You have to insert the sentence at the right place. That's why it's called an organization question. Let's go on with question number 10. This is the last question and then we're done. Yay! Question number 10. What does it say? There is an introductory sentence. For a brief summary provided below, complete the summary by selecting 3 answer choices, so we need to select 3, that express the most important ideas in the passage. Some sentences do not belong in the summary because they express ideas that are not presented or because there are minor ideas in the passage. This question is worth 2 points. That's nice. We should definitely try to answer this correctly. This, guys, is a summary question. Summary question. It's called like that because you have to summarize the most important ideas. Let's have a look at A. The number and sophistication of the architectural, administrative, commercial and religious features, there are a lot of features here, of Teotihuacan indicate the existence of centralized planning and control. Can we find the idea of centralized planning and control in the text? And is this idea important? Yeah, I think it is. Perhaps you remember that. Let's have a look at the text again. I will choose another color. This is getting very colorful here. Let's choose yellow. As you can see here, they talk about much planning and central control. So this idea seems pretty central. Let's choose A. That seems correct. Let's go on with B. Teotihuacan may have developed its own specific local religion. Okay, as a result of the cultural advances made possible by the city's great prosperity. We remember that they talked about prosperity in the text. They did. But did they talk about their own specific local religion, and was that a main idea, even if they did? So let's have a look at the text. As you can see here, let's choose again yellow. They talked about religious tourism here, okay? And they talked about religious significance and shrines, but they didn't talk about people developing an own religion. This is not a central idea of the text, so we will not take B. We will go on with C. Several factors may account for Teotihuacan's extraordinary development, including its location, its rich natural resources, irrigation potential, intelligent elite, and the misfortune of rival communities. These seem to be ideas that we can find in the text. It was located on a natural trade route. They stated that before, right? They talked about obsidian, which means they were rich in a natural resource. They talked about irrigation, we had that before. They talked about an intelligent elite, and they talked about that other towns were not so fortunate. Let's pick C. That seems good. D. As a result of its large number of religious shrines, by the 1st century AD, Teotihuacan became the most influential religious center in all of Mesoamerica. They talked about shrines, but they also stated that it may only have been one shrine, if I remember that correctly. Yes, it's stated here. Shrine or shrines, okay? They talk about shrine or shrines. They don't talk about that there was a large number of religious shrines and that Teotihuacan became the most influential religious center. So religion is an aspect in the text, but it's not a main point, okay? So D is out. Let's go on with E. In many important areas, from the obsidian industry to religious tourism, Teotihuacan's success and prosperity typified the classic positive feedback cycle. I remember that. That was stated in the text. Let's go to the text. That seems familiar. In paragraph 6, they say the picture of Teotihuacan that emerges is a classic picture of positive feedback, okay? And then, if you remember that, they talk about these factors that we were talking about here, that one factor influenced the other, and that this was the cause why Teotihuacan became such a wealthy city. This led to increased wealth. We can say, yeah, that's a main idea of the text. We choose E. Now we chose 3 answers. Let's have a look at F, just to be sure that we can eliminate it. Although many immigrants settled in Teotihuacan between AD 150 and 700, the increasing threat of coerced labor discouraged further settlement and limited population growth. So if we go back to this paragraph here, to the last paragraph, you see that they talked about people being coerced. That means being forced to move to the city and serve as labor force. That means they were forced to work there. But they don't talk about a diminishing population. They only talk about the growing population. This idea stands exactly in contrast to what is stated here. F is out, okay? We have A, C, and E. These are our correct 3 answers. That's it. This is how you solve the questions in TOEFL Reading. This was the first practice test for TOEFL Reading provided by ETS. I hope this was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below. And if you want to know more about the TOEFL and download templates, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss the next video. I'd love to see you here next time. Bye bye.